Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Lucid, and I am joined once again by Sai.
Hi, I'm Sai, and I'm once again joining Lucid.
And we've got a few fun turns for you guys, I think. So things are starting to shake up. We've got what looks to be an incoming coalition against Darko, who's been just poking various players in various ways all game. We've got
Well, it's a coalition of like two people. So more
yeah,
like just two people aligning against them rather than the world deciding collectively that Arco needs to go down.
yeah, that's fair. I think the two people. It's Arithia, who has two caps, and who's the other person? Pan.
Shibalba.
Oh no, Shabalba, and Shabalba has one cap. So
Yeah.
it's hard to call that a coalition because the number of caps on each side of the fight are the same. So
Yeah. I would still say that it's favored towards Erythia plus Shibalba,
yeah,
but it's by no means a set in stone 1v2 that Arco can't win.
yeah, I agree with that. And to add to it, I think it's going to be very difficult for like Zabalba and Arithia will kind of need to outplay Arco to have minimal losses if they win. Like the idea that they'll kill Arco hardly losing anything, they would have to play really well. So yeah, I think that one can go either way. We've got the Vettiheim, who probably is going to be. Everybody's kind of guessing they're just going to kind of crush Utgard, and
Yeah.
then Gath is pretty much a free agent now. Marignon is
Essentially dead,
essentially dead.
and was Pangea since backing out of their war with Vettiheim. I will say, though, that the armies that we've seen from Erythia heading towards Arco looked fundamentally vulnerable. Like, we didn't see gems, we didn't see any nature mages, so they were suffering from the same issue that that one big Utgard army saw, in that they're just identifiably vulnerable to any kind of trap or battlefield clear. Like, there's just no protection for a bunch of squishy human mages, and that's always very scary.
Yeah. The only place they're a little different than Utgard is they have a lot better research and kind of more various paths. So like certain types of thugs, or like they could even kill these idols of sorcery with the mages, like with enough pillars of fire, for example, if they hit. But they're still
That's true.
vulnerable. Like it's like. So I think they're maybe less vulnerable than Utgard, but they still are like fundamentally vulnerable. So cool. So let's get started. We have a message from TNG. Well, moving back on the Pythium's fort, let's see what happens. Okay, I'm interested to see what happens as well. And let's start with,
Looks like he's expecting a big battle, or at least another trap.
yeah, I think it's safe to say that TNG has been expecting, he's, after that one traumatic experience, he's got like PTSD and is seeing traps in literally every province now, every turn.
Which is, I mean, I think that's a very sensible precaution, given that Pythium can't put a trap
Yeah.
in basically every province every turn.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, so Vettiheim's doing a magic phase attack. This may be, what is this? Oh, it's just an air mage. I was like, maybe this is the god, but no.
I'm guessing this is just, yeah, air elemental. So this is a PD clearing thing,
Right.
which might be intended to cut off retreats, or it might be intended to disrupt movement. But either way, it's just grabbing a province real quick.
So let's go see where this was on top of an Utgard fort, right? Which I
Okay.
could have told because it's the Utgard PD. And then
And so one of the upsides of doing that is that there's almost no chance that Utgard is moving and patrolling into that fort, given that it's on their southern border.
right.
So the move here is basically just to cut off Utgard from drawing income from any of their provinces by putting all of their forts under siege simultaneously.
Right. And it's going to make it almost impossible for him to mobilize the defense now. Like just trying to get all the mages in the same province and stuff is going to be really hard. And really interesting things here. We've got a Vettiheim thug, Vettiheim hag thug.
Oh yeah.
And this is just the most budget of kits. Silver on a really traditionally a weak chassis, It's,
Well, they have a decent amount of hit points once they enter this white form.
yeah, that's true. Moss body, liquid body, soul vortex body, ethereal.
Yeah, between all the stacked layers of mitigation that it has, there's not a lot that conventional troops are really going to do to this.
Yeah.
Crossbows might still hurt it, but nothing else.
So the gear again, a frost brand, so some clear power, some reinvigoration boots, which probably this might be more for mobility than
That's my guess too. Yeah.
yeah, because with soul vortex you're not really worried about reinvigoration. And then the lion pelt,
Yeah.
which I think he
It's
has
a
witches
15
make these.
Right. It's a 15 gem kit, but only 10 of those are even needed for the combat.
Yeah.
And that's mostly just due to how efficient these paths are. Oh, and
Yep.
a death gem for the Soul Vortex.
Right. I think he did invulnerability too, so there's 2 death gems.
Mm.
But no personal regen or anything, which he could also have chosen to do. But yeah, very cool. This is under siege by a scout. I'm a little confused there. Was that?
It must have had 0 PD.
Yeah. And then, also there's a thug here. Is this going to be the same thug kit? I'm loving these budget kits. Firebrand, boots of the long strides.
Longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those boots give even more map movement, which
Right.
is presumably the goal there.
Soul Vortex,
And
liquid body, moss body, body ethereal. It's a very solid
part of the reason
script.
that this works is that Utgard's fort PD is very, very bad. Like, they don't have crossbows or anything, and these guys just don't have hard-hitting weapons. So even a very budget thug can easily be immune to them.
Right. They do get kind of a lot of them. Like if you look at the amount of PD you get per like gold you spend, or like the amount of gold of troops you get, because I think I've run the numbers on it before. Like it was kind of good, but like you say, there's not really anything very lethal here. So
yeah, decent, I suppose, as a front line if you just want to put a pile of mages behind it,
right,
or crossbows. But on its own, it's not going to kill anything.
Yeah. And then we have a little battle here. Let's just take a look at this army just to get a sense of it. God, this looks so small. That's the thing that's always just shocking about Vedheim armies is how compact they are.
Yeah. What's really impressive, though, is the variety of the mages that he's bringing.
Yeah.
Because that's the real strength to Vedheim right now. Okay, so that's the reincarnated or the twice-born form of that amphitheater that we'd see.
Right. Oh, some bogus gear.
Yeah. I'm guessing that that's for assassination. Although, I don't know. It's a little odd because Utgard is not exactly... Like, they can do some interesting things with scouts or with Scrotty and wolf form if they make...
Right.
But we haven't seen any of that from Utgard.
Yeah. Okay. So this doesn't look like an enormous mage commitment, but it's a significant one. We don't see a ton of like gear on the mages. There's like a tiny little bit of gear. I don't see water gems, which is kind of interesting because a lot of the mages he was trying to put cold, like, well, not a lot, but the mages who didn't have cold resistance, like this guy, he put a ring of frost on. Maybe that was more to help with the Rimvedi auras that they may at some point in combat find themselves next to.
Yeah, and the white mages, I believe, also have a cold one.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah. So, yeah, okay. I mean, it's about like 8 mages, it looks like. Maybe a little more. 10.
Could be getting that mixed up with the Frostfather, because they're the guys who I often see with that.
Right. Okay. So this is the army that's intending to kill Vedheim. I mean, Utgard. And this is a much lower mage commitment army.
Oh, I was right. They do have a cold aura.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they do. God, look at all those chill auras here. That's so ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you had called the other army like a lower commitment, but I would say that these are both actually very, very high commitment stacks just because of the number of Rimvedis that are there.
Yeah.
That's essentially the entirety of Vedheim's Sacred Core. That is every Rimvedi that he's built over the course of this game.
Yeah.
Between those two armies.
Yeah, that's fair. This isn't a low commitment army, but it is lower than this one. But yeah, these are both, if he lost either of these, they would be very painful losses.
Yeah, he's got a couple more because he has been continuously turning them out in his capital. But yeah. So it's a good thing that he's not fighting anyone else because he can't make any sort of similar commitments along any of his other fronts.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, the only thing he might be missing. Oh, he has some hurlers. He could use a few more hurlers because while Utgard doesn't have a lot of armies left, they do have some forts. And Vedheim isn't excellent at putting forts under siege unless they're bringing some of the Jotun hurlers around, at which point these guys do kind of excel at it.
Yeah. And even then, the Rimvedi are 13 strength in Cold 3. So they actually do bring decent siege power.
Oh, yeah. Let's take a look at them in combat. Take a look at what their thing is. So strength, 1.4. Oh, yeah. Well, it's called it's the middle of the summer or something.
Right.
So yeah, it'll bump up a little bit. Like
soon enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. So I think that's all to cover here. Let's go look at the Pythium and TNG War. Do you have anything else you want to say on this? I feel like we're kind of beating a horse on the...
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to last very long.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see what happens. So here, Pythium is attack. We'll go do Pythium Agartha, and then we'll do Pythium TNG. So Pythium is trying to keep Utgard's cap under siege, which is generally a good move. Like, he's like, okay, yeah, we're struggling, but let's keep the pressure up.
Yeah, he just wasn't expecting there to be very much, if any, province defense.
Right.
Because this army is clearly not enough. It's losing to a relatively modest amount of PD here.
Ooh, the mages barely escape. But yeah, it hardly loses anything for that. Except the gems, I guess, on the Revelers.
Yeah, but that's only 6 PD, so it was also a very small commitment on Agartha's part in order to keep that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's the good stuff about just, like, even when you feel like you're down and out, don't forget to put a little bit of PD in all your provinces. You get nice little things like this.
Let's check out Kinbreaker, because this is the guy who we were excited to see.
Yes. This is one of the best. Now, sadly, no items.
No one wants to donate to Agartha.
Yeah, you really do want to put a chess piece on this guy. I mean, the magic of him is he has this ridiculously high natural protection that you can then stack with armor. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of magic to him. Like, he's also got 0 encumbrance. He's got the mindless trait. So
you'd think that either TNG or Arithia could see some value in donating some gear for this guy.
Yeah, even just on loan, for a couple turns or like 5 turns or something. But yeah, I mean, he doesn't need much. It'd be nice to give him like a brand or something, and like a hat and a chest piece, and that's really all you need.
And it's also kind of fun to go theory craft item builds for other people's super combatants that you don't actually care about.
Right.
And then, you can go send him a nice little kit and have him go around and test out your little gear setup for you. And if he dies, well, you don't enjoy losing the gear, but it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. And I mean, this guy just has the potential to be, an absolute menace. The only thing is that since it's pretty clear to me, at least as an observer, that Pythium's not going to be getting Agartha's forts, it's possible that, maybe, I'm not sure about Arethia, but it's certainly possible that TNG, thinks they might be the one that has to come finish Agartha off. And maybe they don't want to arm their, the resistance.
That's fair. Although, on the other hand, they also have a pretty easy time with that. Since they have enough Earth Mages, they can just advance and cast and shatter this guy to death.
Yeah, that's true. He is inanimate, which is that's the tag for shatter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So... yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Shatter is a pretty high damage armor negating attack that you can't resist. So, but it only works on inanimates. Anyhow, very cool. Kind of wish he had gear, but beggars can't be choosers. He's probably just glad to have the hero. And the hero is pretty sick in his own right. Like, he can kill a lot of things without it, but he's just significantly more vulnerable without any gear. Like, ideally you patch up his resistances, put some armor on him, and give him a brand to clear things faster, because even 2 brands on this guy and he does quick and self, he's a little murder machine. You can also turn him into a trampler too.
Yeah, or the other thing I was going to suggest is Earthquake Caster. Like, he has very many different avenues for being useful.
Yeah. Okay. So that is that for the Agartha resistance front. And
Victor.
TNG pinging that with a scout. Okay, we've got a little battle here.
Well, this one isn't so much of a battle so much as it is TNG catching what looks to be possibly some reinforcements from Pythium moving somewhere. Because I can't imagine Pythium actually expecting this to hold out against anything.
Well, let's see what he was doing, because he had a Misty here. What was the Misty scripted? Protection. Okay. Now, there's a thought behind this, right? The thought was we're going to put protection on the mini Hydra, and if he sends a thug in, then we're going to have enough PD that maybe the mini Hydra will poison it to death or something. Is that a reasonable thought? Probably not. They have PR in their bless, right?
They don't. They have swamp survival, remember?
Oh, that's right. Wait, how is he getting poison resistance? Oh, did they buff it? Oh, wait, does he have a nature path? So. No? Oh, this guy must have done Poison Ward. Okay.
Yeah. Because I think his regular troops are buffed there as well. Or the other thing it could be doing is gem burning.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Was like, this is probably the minimum amount of stuff to gem burn, and I think he was successful. So it's just, he's believed.
Well, we know that the gems were spent. So yeah. There's that at least. Oh, yep, there's
There's the
poison.
poison
Okay.
word. So yeah,
Yeah, maybe that's what it's doing.
that might have been it. Ping from a scout. Some Maenads try to hit these Camazotz. Or if these are Horde of
Yeah, we've
Skeletons.
seen Yeah,
Yeah.
we've seen TNG using these Camzots very effectively, and these guys are just so good. Like even aside from the fact that they can do this by spending some gems, they're one of the cheapest sources of flying magic leadership that you can buy, and they're also good undead leaders. So like anytime you need to just ferry around a bunch of unusual units, these guys are great for that,
Yeah.
and they're pretty cheap
Yeah.
for what you get. They even have like 40 leadership, so they don't even impose like a morale penalty when they're carrying the stuff around. So between that and their incredible map move and stealthy, like these guys are just amazing for utility. And here TNG is using them as actual mages as well.
Yeah, and one of the things I think Demosthenes, who's playing this, does really, really well, and pretty much all the games I've seen with him in it, is there's like a thing I read a long time ago about the minions where like certain gyms are cheap and certain gyms are expensive. And whenever so you might be like, this is not a great use of 8 death gems, because they're kind of gone and, was it worth killing this stuff? Who knows? But he's just like, if I have gems lying around and I can put them towards the purpose of winning a war, I'm going to do it even if it's not super efficient. So he's not worried about like saving these for later or saving them up to do something special. He's like, this is a way we can, close out this war quickly. Like, gonna put it to that. So kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right. Hits this. Nothing present. This is Pythium's cap, where Tianchi's just pinging it with a scout. And there's a significant defense here. We've got a Foul Vapors little... No, not Foul Vapors. But an interesting little collection of mages.
Yeah, it looks like he's focusing a lot on just buffing up his guys.
And,
Does he have... So he does have Foul Vapor's caster.
but no gems. There were no gems.
Yeah, I was thinking he might have he could also be hiding the gems.
Yeah, I mean, this is his capital, so he's patrolling here. So
probably not then.
He's probably, my guess is these are just to kill thugs. He's wanting to keep these magic phase thugs off of his cap. So this squad was, going to probably advance and cast different things that probably would have killed him, like Frozen Heart, maybe Vine Arrows, stuff like that. But who knows? And then this is, of course, the message that TNG had sent us about was this army.
Yeah, so this is the one that presumably he feels he can actually send into a Foul Vapors trap. Although, where are the air mage? Oh, are they sharing squares with the cubes up there?
Yeah, so there's these. Yeah, okay. This guy's gonna obviously be point bow. There's only one though, which I'm a little concerned with. But this guy's obviously going to be doing gift of flight on these cubes. And he's got a behemoth here on attack closest, which this guy is not going to fly, but he is almost certainly going to have quickness targeted on him and probably ethereal from this guy. So these are the anti-Foul Vapors measures, primarily these guys, and then probably he's also got these flyers, which are going to jump in the back too. Some forward position crossbows. I don't know if there's other... we could really set an air elemental caster, most likely. But that won't matter for the gem threshold thing, so... And he's almost certainly got Wailing Winds now, too, is the other important point, I think. So...
yeah, between those, I don't think that he should have much problem actually winning the battle. It's just a matter of making sure he doesn't take any unnecessary losses.
Right. And, it's really interesting. It's these things which are specifically designed to kill stuff that's designed to cast Foul Vapors under the gem threshold. Just to be completely obvious about what TNG's thinking about here. So yeah, that's this part of the war. Any thoughts on the TNG Pythium conflict here?
No, I mean, I'm always happy to see Pythium striking out and, trying to get what wins he can. But he's starting to reach the point where he's just not going to have enough in order to even inflict appreciable damage. Yeah. So yeah, I think we're going to hit the point where we're going to see him actually start dying without inflicting the same sorts of pushback that he was able to do in the first glorious turn of the invasion.
Right. The things I'm not sure, I can't remember. I don't think there's much army in this fort. But maybe there is. I
That was where he was summoning the Long Dead Horsemen. So there should actually be a
Oh.
lot of enchantment-based summons in there, unless he already got them out.
That could actually be a bit of a problem for the flying cubes and stuff. I mean, they'll obviously kill a long dead horseman, but they'll also get hit by a lot of lance charges and get blown up. Like, if he doesn't get the... Oh, no, he has Wailing Winds. And, yeah, if he gets a proper battle with Wailing Winds and Serpent's Blessing, he's going to win pretty easily. I was thinking he could get jammed up in the gate, but that's probably actually not an issue.
Yeah. Really, his issue is going to be winning the battle on the inside after whatever breakout attempt / damage infliction strategy Pythium's going to pull on him.
Right. And then this is really what's left of the Pythium army. So I think, like what you're saying, he's running out of fuel. This fort isn't broken, so there's a move in a world in which Pythium takes the whole army and moves here with the intention of riding out the next turn or threatening it. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think Pythium's main army down there is most likely going to be saved for the actual cap defense.
Yeah, probably. Coming down to the Erythia side of the war, Pythium is riding out against... So that he kind of lost ground against Tianchi this turn, but he's riding out against Erythia because Erythia had mobilized towards Arcocephale, and it looks like... Oh, spicy. Okay, so context. Last turn, this army was on top of this fort, and I was speculating they would go underwater, and it looks like... And this is what's wild to me. There's an entire army on top of this fort. And Arco set up defenses for both of the underwater provinces, which to me reads as he thought he would win the underwater battle.
Yeah, so my thinking is that Arco kind of, I don't want to say played himself here, right? Because, he didn't actually take any serious losses and in fact actually defended quite successfully. But what he was thinking was that Arco was going to go from the fort into the lake because, that kind of makes sense, right? That should be where
that's what I would
Erythia,
do.
Yeah, that's where Erythia would see the easiest gains. And that would also cause Arco the most problems if Erythia were able to do so successfully. So Arco's kind of playing against that, thinking, okay, well, he has this relatively small, relatively unsupported army. Where's it going to go? Obviously into the water where I'm not supposed to be able to deploy as much stuff. So that's probably the Banes and Buff squad that we've seen before, which was set up to be able to kill elementals. And then the one underneath it is most likely just water elemental spam of his own.
Right. But, versus it wouldn't be all this because he has the crossbows, but there's a lot of Dukados here. And,
Well, those weren't in range. Those weren't on that fort.
Oh, they weren't. Okay. How many were? There were, 6? Yeah, maybe 6 for that trouble.
It was the little army. It was the really small group.
But it was two. There were 2 groups that combined, and I think one group had 2 mages and the other had 3, so maybe 5 or something.
And you can also check Arco's farm there and see what got bombed.
Oh yeah, maybe that was these guys coming over. So, oh yeah, this was one of the squads. So this was not both of them. This was a single one of the... Let's see what's happening here. We have Phoenix Power going off on Erythia's side. These guys are also doing Phoenix Power, and I'm assuming we're going to see Fire Elementals.
Yeah, and that's the most efficient counter rating that most elemental nations can do.
Yeah.
Elementals are crazy effective. And even when you consider their gem costs, they're still some of the most effective early mid-game magic that you can deploy.
So these guys, Erythia's not doing a Fire Elementals, obviously. But he's basically planning on doing Pillars of Fire bullshit. But against Fire Elementals, being a Fire 3, there's really nothing you can do as a Fire 3 mage against Fire Elementals. And Blade Wind's nice.
Yeah, and his Blade Wind. But the pillars would be okay if they were to keep casting it, given that they might, target the mages in the rear. But his troops and mages aren't going to be particularly effective against these guys, just because they don't have an easy, reliable way of guaranteed hitting these elementals. And the troops,
and they're getting cooked alive here now too. These guys are fatigued out. So
so the heat auras do a lot of work. Being set on fire, of course, does a lot of work. And these guys have naturally high encumbrance. So their combat stats are also going to drop as they stand next to those fire elementals.
Right. And that's going to feed into the difficulty of hitting these guys in Heat 3. Because, once you're cooking it even 70 fatigue or something, this bit of defense is going to be a bit trickier to get through in conjunction with the ethereal.
So yeah, very efficient play on Arco's part. Cooked up a bunch of those hoplites. That
Oh
obviously wouldn't
yeah.
have been effective against the main army of Erythia, but Erythia's main army wasn't even in range. So Arco was able to kind of just see what Erythia had deployed and knew that the army that he had on his fort wasn't really going to be able to cause too much of an issue. He didn't. I don't know if he saw the army that Erythia was sending in behind it, because I don't think that this Sea King can survive against that many Astral Mages. Although,
So this guy's
and
pretty
actually, I
interesting.
take that back.
32
32
MR.
M.
And it's going to be
Maybe he
going
can
up.
actually.
He's this almost certainly is going to be Iron Warriors and like Iron Will. And then this is going to be, we'll just see what he's going to do. Iron Will, Liquid Body, Body Ethereal Blessing, Mind Burn, Enlarge. Oh, that wasn't using a gem. I think he was also going to buff with Regeneration. There's a lot, I think, that didn't get cast on script. So
Yeah, because he didn't trigger gem use.
right. So he was going to get hit with Iron Warriors. Iron Will doesn't look like it went off here because he started at 32. So it must have targeted these guys. Yeah, it did. So that's kind of a little learning for him too. But yeah, this guy would have been at 36 MR. Which...
Yeah, the only thing that I would be worried about is that Erythia's army is set up to do a large number of armor negating spells, both Lightning Bolt, Thunderstrike, and Incinerate.
Yeah.
So between those, if he doesn't have elemental resistances, this guy's still going to get cooked.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah, Incinerate would just give this guy such a horrible day. And there's really nothing except for stacking fire gear that's going to block Incinerate. I mean, like a Ring of Fire, but... You know, like a casual 5 fire resistance isn't going to have much to say about Incinerate. So,
yeah, and Lightning Bolt is even more problematic because that also stuns him.
Right. And that kind of gets into the challenge of like trying to super combat an Erythia army is like that from the Mage Core, there's actually a ton of threat vectors. Like, oh, we have to block all our elemental resistances. We have to block MR. I'm like, and then they hit pretty hard. So we have to, be pretty tough in for the physical combat. It's like a lot of boxes to check.
I don't think that you can actually realistically super combat into Erythia's army, or into Erythia's mages, I should say, unless you have some sort of battlefield clear going. So, like, if they're lacking poison resistance, then you can make a Foul Vapor super combatant. If they don't have protection buffs, you can make a Rain of Stone super combatant, that sort of thing. But a super combatant that's intended to just last forever just won't work into their firepower.
Now, there is the same risk that they could not do advance and cast, which, it's like the classic Lemuria thing is you have the dust-to-dust casters not advancing and casting and killing the consoles. Same thing could happen here with Lightning Bolt and Incinerate. And, I mean, even Pillar of Fire is going to miss a lot at long range. So if the mages are set to just cast spells and they're relying entirely on like, oh, we'll just soul slay super combatants, well, that might not work against this guy, right? So
yeah, well, they were advancing casting though.
They were? Okay.
Or at least they were in the last turn. We haven't seen them in the updated version.
This is at least part of the army that would be coming in. And so there's a bit of PD here. Oh god.
I don't know if this fight's gonna last long enough for them to reach the end of their script and start
advancing. Oh, they are.
Oh, yep.
They are. Okay.
Yeah,
so let's watch this again from the perspective of just being an innocent Pythium militia. You thought that Arco was... Or that Pythium, Erythia was going to go attack Arco, and you're like, oh shit, what is this army here? Ah! Get the fuck out, man.
One of the things that I think is fun is that in the province defense, you won't ever see a Comita tent. You won't ever see a Comita tent. It's always going to be the Limitanes, because the Limitanes are supposed to be the
locals.
Regional troops. Yeah. Whereas the comitatenses are the professional soldiers that are moving around, like as an actual offensive legion.
Right. That makes sense. And these guys have significantly better stats, which would jive with them being more well trained.
Yeah, it's basically it's based on the late Roman Empire, after Constantine's reforms, kind of like how the first two eras are like pre-Marian reforms because they still have the hastati and princeps.
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
So we have a second Erythian army moving into the theater, and let's take a look at what is present here.
Well, it is interesting that we're seeing those hordes of skeleton casters.
Yeah, apparently this is pretty popular. Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Soul Slay coming out. So this is a rare Astral 3 prince. Those are very rare. and an Astral 2
That's the
king.
king. I mean, with Astral 2, you could still make him Astral 3 with a hat, so he'll still be able to be a teleporting throne claimer.
Right.
Yeah, those Astral 3s are actually quite valuable when you have a combat blessed for your Deducados, but this Arythia does not. So it's not quite as big of a deal.
So this is actually pretty interesting because there's a ton of mage support here. So the troll and stuff, which is are the Sea King, if he moves here, but Arythia moves mage support here on advance and cast, would kill it, right? Arythia could also move here, but then he risks Arco reinforcing this province from Joman's cap. So this is like a risky move for Arythia. If Arythia moves this army here, he can't bring any of the mage support from this province. So this army is almost certainly not going to easily be able to kill the Sea King. I guess it probably just goes to the throne. Right?
Yeah, that's my guess as well, is that he wants to smash that throne, so that's why he's bringing so many troop reinforcements. Because that's basically what I would see as that army.
There's only 130 supplies there, though. And there's no nature mages or any gear, I think, for managing that. So it's a risky issue as well.
True. Yeah, I think he can take a turn of starvation, though. I don't think that he's going to mind too much.
Yeah.
It's not like his mages will get disease, and his troops are really, at this point, just frontline.
The thing that I feel most uncomfortable about this, though, is, like you said, this mage core is like vulnerable to a bunch of sort of wipes.
Yeah, and he's very clearly in teleport range of that Demi-Lich.
Oh, a Demi-Lich. Oh, yeah. And
in Joman.
And the other thing is, like, Arco has clearly shown that they know what they're doing. They know their way around Dominions. And you're basically teeing this army up for Joman to magic phase, for Arco to magic phase attack on, but then also potentially other things. Now, one of the things I think...
You could also just regular phase move onto it with some Orphic Mystics.
I believe...
Like, get a thugged up Foul Vapors caster, that'll do it.
Yeah. People were mentioning to me in private, like in Discord. So apparently it's like I think everybody in the game knows this at this stage, was that Arco was trying to buy various idols of sorcery. Like, he's trying to pay people gems to send their idol of sorcery to hit this army. And I think he was trying to send it last turn. So that's also like in the cards potentially. I don't know if we'll ever end up seeing that, but he was certainly trying to.
If someone like Pangea wants to go after Arythia, then they absolutely could do that. And then, they smash the Erythian army while also opening with an actual attack on the other side. That would be a very reasonable move if they wanted to actually take Arythia out.
Right. And Pangea is moving troops up into this theater. We can cover this here. He's just taken this throne, which hardly had anything in it.
Yeah, I will say, though, I'm a little surprised he sent the satyrs in.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really like doing with LA Pan, or like I've said, not like I've played a ton, but one of the things that I thought that is really cool with these guys is that because they're stealthy and, you use them for siege strength and they're very mobile, you just park them on the fort, and then you don't worry about the, like, undisciplined crud. You only send in the actual, like, good troops in order to go clear out the fort. I guess he just didn't have anything in range at the time.
Yeah, and there's really nothing inside. It looks like he's put the good stuff on top of this fort, but my takeaway from all of this is that Pangea is basically about... Oh gosh, we're going to have to watch that battle here this turn. But my takeaway from all of this is that Pangea is about to have a lot of troops in this region and is about to be a free agent. So it would make a lot of sense if they're going to go on Arythia, which they have a pretty big border with, to get paid off to kill Arythia's big army. Like getting paid 30 or 40 gems to do that. The thing that...
While also taking a bunch of territory for yourself, no less.
Right. Gunboat Diplomacy, the Idol of Sorcery, is clearly out of range of this army, though. This army's all the way up here, and the idol's down here. So, as casters, we'll get a warning. Now, Arythia won't know, right? But as casters, we'll be able to track where Gunboat Diplomacy is, and be able to, see it coming.
Yeah, so it's really a matter of what Pangea wants to do next.
Right.
In Pangea's position, I might be very comfortable letting the 3-cap Arco take a little bit more of a beating before I intervene.
Yeah.
And he also has some easy spoils that he could take, namely the Agarthan provinces.
Right. It's also possible that I think this is common knowledge enough in the game at this point that like Arithia was trying to buy the Idol of Sorcery just from like I had multiple people message me, and I think it's common enough knowledge that Pan could probably be like, "Hey, do you mind if I get XYZ of these spoils with Pythium, and we'll sign like a long-term nap or something?" And I think Arithia would just accept it. Like I kind of do, because Arithia really doesn't want, in my opinion, Pan fucking with them while they're doing all of this. So giving Pangea access to all of this land is probably fine for them if they end up conquering a lot of Arco, and I don't know. So
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable. It doesn't really hurt them in any way. It just denies them a little bit of what spoils they could have, but they don't seem to be really going for that right now anyways.
right,
Like, if you look at where their armies are, they don't even have stuff on the border with Pythium at this point.
right.
You know, not counting that throne.
Yeah.
They do have that.
I'm also kind of rooting for, I forgot that it was Janahito playing Arithia, and I really like Janahito and playing with him. So I'm actually kind of rooting for Arithia a bit.
Yeah, I think he's taking a solid nation with a solid build, and so far he's been playing pretty well. I think he's a little, I don't want to say like slow, but cautious.
Yeah.
That he doesn't want to make major gem expenditures, it seems, just in general. Like, you're compared to basically all the other players at his level in terms of like size, and especially compared to like gem and research, he just doesn't have that many gems on his mages. He isn't really set up with countermeasures. Like, if you compare his armies to Vedheim's armies, Arithia's got a lot of firepower, right? He's bringing 20 mages in a big old communion, whereas Vedheim's bringing a much larger variety so that his mages can actually cast the spells that Vedheim feels that they need to cast.
Right.
Whereas Arithia's is bringing guns. It's like the American approach, basically.
Yeah. The interesting thing, though, is like, look at this battle. So this is the counterpoint for what you're saying. 1, 4. Okay, so it's 5 gems. Okay, no, this is still a good investment. I was gonna say,
oh no,
it's 5.
5 gems.
Yeah.
5. Yeah.
I was gonna say, if you value them at like, I don't know, 30 gold a piece, it's significant, but not really for what they killed. They killed 500 gold troops for 5 gems. That's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I'd alchemize for 100 gold.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Arithia kind of seems to have 2 modes. Either they're doing like mass mage deployment, like super high commitment, or very low commitment. And the low commitment version is so low commitment that they're not even gems on mages for the most part. And it's
but my point is, even on his high commitment army,
right,
he's not bringing countermeasures. He's not bringing things that answer foul vapors. He's certainly not bringing anything that would answer those sorts of traps that had been hitting TNG. The only thing he's got going for him is, I'm just going to nuke whatever's on the field fast enough.
Yeah, we should really be looking for a Pearl Mage to show up here. I'm wondering why it hasn't. And yeah, we don't. I mean, there could have been a foul vapors trap in this province. He didn't know that.
Well, I think that a mere trap
Wouldn't
is
work.
at least a little bit answered, just based on how much pillars of fire are coming down. He might think that, I'm just going to fry the foul vapors caster before it can do anything.
Right.
That might be his whole play, essentially. But a foul vapors caster thug, or an actual supported foul vapors play that isn't set to retreat and so on, is going to be a lot more dangerous when you don't have the poison resistance support.
Yeah, no Pearl Mages here at all. So very interesting. I agree. Yeah, there's some vulnerability here, and yeah,
He can't keep getting away with it.
yeah. Okay, so let's keep going.
One more thing to call out is Pythium did counter raid very effectively.
Right. I think he took a bunch of stuff. Let's look at the score graph here for provinces for Pythium this turn. I don't know. It was negative on the whole, but
it was TNG making those gains.
Right, but Arithia had a small loss of territory here, even though he was up some territory against Arco. So, or no, was
he?
He wasn't
No,
actually.
he wasn't.
No, I think the reason he took this off Pythium too. So while Pythium raided this stuff back, he lost control of 2 provinces here. So I think that's some of the math. Okay.
But yeah, that throne should be going to Arithia soon. But with the army that being as vulnerable as it is, there's no guarantee on that.
Oh, one thing we should do for the next episode is Arco gave me, I think it was this next turn, he gave me his position rankings for all the players. So that'll be fun for us to go through. Because it's interesting, because we have, Arco and I have been chatting pretty much every turn. But he's got, despite that, he has a very different perspective than you and I think. So it'll be fun for us to go through. But yeah, that Zabalba continuing to patrol with these huge stacks of sacreds, just broadcasting power and confidence.
Yeah, I don't know if I love that either. Like, I can see patrolling with at least some of that stuff,
Right.
but I think that the sheer quantity that you're doing there is a little bit vulnerable. Similar to how when you have like a bunch of troops without mage support and they can be hit with like a foul vapors trap.
Right.
Well, Ozelotls aren't exactly susceptible to foul vapors in particular. There are still big plays that you can do that are just going to cause a ton of damage to that army, especially if you can hit them with something that they can't kill.
Right.
Like, I don't think that an Idol of Sorcery would do the trick.
No. Yeah.
But Arco at this stage in the game should have enough nastiness that they can find some sort of like decay play or maybe an acid storm super combatant, something along those lines that actually could clear out that army.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
So Xibalba really should actually have some mage support with it. Like, if you do want to patrol that heavily, then it can't just be with unsupported troops like that.
You don't really get anything from patrolling with this much stuff. Like, you can kill all the scouts with like fewer things, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he's doing it either. The only thing I can think of is that he's scared of those like 40 goblin raiding parties that Gath was cruising around with.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, that just seems kind of silly to me, especially given that he has so many blood hunting provinces, which are naturally going to be stopping those kinds of raiding parties. I really don't think that he should be patrolling.
And he's
like
also
that.
finding a lot of Arco scouts. Like, he's gotten 3 Arco scouts this turn. So Arco clearly is very worried about him. I mean, as we would be in Arco's position, I'm sure, because there are a lot of murder kitties, like very much positioned to fight. But we haven't the diplomacy between Zabalba and Arco is still a bit of a mystery to us, because we know, just to remind everybody, they were Arco and Arithia and Zabalba were going to go on Arco. But then Zabalba got a nap canceling message from Arithia and was like, what the fuck? And that's because Arco was like had double crossed them and was planning, or I guess they had both double crossed him and they were planning to go on him. But Arco didn't end his non-aggression pact with Zabalba. Meanwhile, Arithia attacks Arco. But it's unclear the diplomatic relationship between, like, the last thing we haven't heard that Arco ended their nap with Zabalba, and we hadn't heard that Zabalba had ended the nap with Arco either. So,
well, we have a little more on that, namely that Arco says that from their perspective, they don't have a nap.
Right. But Zabalba doesn't know that. So, yeah, just Cold War state here.
I would say that it's not that cold in that Xibalba has apparently agreed with Arithia to go in on Arco. So it might be that Xibalba is waiting for their nap to cool down while Arco feels that they can already attack with impunity.
But yeah, it could be that too. We just haven't heard from Zabalba, so we don't really know.
But I don't think that it's any confusion as to what side of the war Xibalba is looking to be on. I think
Right.
that it's pretty clear that Xibalba is going to go fight Arco.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. Okay, just from the troop positioning and stuff. So I think that covers this. I don't think there's much more to cover there. Let's go look at the battle for Marignon. So Marignon rides out.
Is this a Gember? Oh no, this is an actual everything.
Right.
Okay. Marignon is actually riding out. Yeah, I mean, we already know how this is going just based on the colored flags and so on. But also just looking at the sheer quantity of those Seer, that's a scary stack.
Quantity of Seer. I'm looking at the scout flex here. Look at these scouts. Yeah. It's like they're normal troops.
Yeah, does not like being assassinated.
Right. But yeah, there's a ton of Seer. So let's enjoy this.
If only Gath had a bigger bless, this army would be so much scarier.
Yeah.
Gath has battlefield-wide spells up now.
Yeah,
I mean,
foul vapors.
But like, didn't he just cast mass protection?
Oh,
what was the green spell? Or it might have been Serpent's Blessing.
It was Serpent's Blessing. Yeah.
Okay, but that's still end 7.
Yeah, I think Marignon. This is kind of the problem where they had in that battle where they lost most of their mages before, was they have these forward deployed elemental casters, but they've been getting just ruined by all the ranged attacks. Oh god.
Yeah, especially the round 1 volleys.
Oh, mass flight too.
Mass flight.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Oh, what evil creatures. These zealots here. I know they're
That's
not.
going to help quite a bit.
Yeah, because with all these lifelong protections, Marignon kind of wants a slow battle, right? He wants to sit there and pelt him. Now, a slow battle, he's going to lose to foul vapors anyway, so there's not a way it works, but
And at least we do a little more damage that way, yeah.
right,
And also cause some friendly fire to Gath from that foul vapors.
right.
Although not that much since he has a full Serpent's Blessing now, but, at least it's something.
Yeah, what Marignon certainly doesn't want is flying Sayer jumping on all of his shit.
Yeah, and that seems pretty clear cut to me.
Yeah. This is
And
some of this is
the
just
Mass Blade also works well with the cubes.
right. And some of this is just the math of Gath got ahead and has better research, and there's just not really counterplay left for Marignon anymore. It's just like
this is just a resource discrepancy.
yep.
Interestingly, it doesn't look like he has enough gems to do his battlefield spells twice. So there was a potential for Marignon to really mess him up there.
That's really interesting.
So he is invading with the whole kit and caboodle, but there's no mass flight, there's no foul vapors.
Yeah, there is a world where Marignon won. If he gem baited and then had everything stuck inside and had his stuff maybe central enough, I don't know how that would work. But maybe
It would still be a tall order just based on how many seer there are.
Right.
But yeah, having flanking fire elementals and using the walls as your front line would have been very effective.
Right. Flight would make it tricky still, but it's imaginable at least.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he wouldn't have had flight.
Wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he actually
gem-
might have been able to do it for real. Like, it might have been in his favor.
I mean, looking at the quantity, I think that Gath still would have won, but I think it would have been much, much more costly.
Yeah.
Because you would have had to kill all those fire elementals essentially manually with mostly unbuffed troops.
Right. But with that, though, I'd like everybody, if you've got a drink, raise it, and we'll toast to Marignon as they leave the game here. They've got a couple forts left, or one fort left, but they're done.
Yeah. They're formally out of the game after that fort is cracked and stormed, but they lost any chance of dealing any significant damage.
Right. Interestingly, as we do the obituary for Marignon, they are survived by Agartha, who at one point they were vulturing. Mike, you remember when Agartha was losing? They were up here vulturing this stuff, and Agartha's going to get to, scatter some dirt on the Marinese grave.
Ironically, Marignon kept Agartha alive by hitting Utgard and essentially making Utgard angry enough to pull back when they could have killed Agartha probably by themselves.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that was really a fateful thing in deciding, because that made Utgard a free agent to stab Vedheim, which made Vedheim much more likely to peace out of this war with Pangaea. That there's probably a really big butterfly effect from that.
The dominoes of an ill-timed land grab.
Right. And then that kept Agartha alive, which made Pythium in a worse state, which makes TNG conquer Pythium easier. Like, huge butterfly effects from just Marignon coming over here and pissing off Utgard by poking him. So, very interesting. Oops. Tiny right
that's
here.
just the Bakemonos. Those guys have more than paid for themselves. Those guys have paid for themselves like 8 times over.
Yeah. Okay, so that's that. I think all we have left on this is we've already covered the Vedheim conflict. I think we've covered everybody then.
Yeah, I'd say so. We even touched on the inactive Shabalba. We could talk a little bit more about Arco in terms of their troop deployment, because we did cover them briefly in terms of where they pushed Erythia back. But if you look at where their big armies are blobbed up, it's not on that Erythian border. It's still setting up to fight Shabalba. And that's telling me that either Shabalba gave them like the nap cooldown so that they know that that's coming, or has otherwise made it clear that they and Erythia are going to be working together to fight them.
Yeah, it's also weird. This is what's weird to me. This is what I was saying is weird about the underwater stuff here too, because like the whole armies could have gone. Is like, it's looking like he's not going to defend against Erythia. Like, I would, unless I was very confident I have a way to cheese this army, which is pretty tough to do. I mean, it can be done, but it's going to be tricky to do with the Demi Lich. Anyway, unless I was really confident I could just cheese the army, like I would need to mobilize my army as Arco over here to fight Arithia, but he's like got his eyes fixed on Zabalba. So like, is he gonna let Arithia take his shit? Or does he think he can hold them at bay with these like really budget counter rating stuff things? I don't know.
So I don't know why that army is still in Joman, because it seems just like positionally a very bad place for it to be. Because
Right.
it's so easily isolated. Its path back out is either going through Gath or through this one province choke point that Arithia controls the entire border of.
Right.
Like that just seems to be in a very precarious position where it can be easily cut off. On the other hand, much of that is going to be magic phasable with Gateway. So that might be what he's thinking.
But
Is
there's a
that he
lot of
can just pull
mages
them out
in here,
magically.
you know? Like
Yeah.
I
Maybe
think
Vortex of Returning?
I think
Like,
I think there's a world. I mean, Arco's kind of been burning bridges, but like ignoring that, I think there's a world where you just are like, okay, can I sell this to you in exchange, Zabalba, in exchange for us working together to kill Arithia or something like that? Like, because I
I
don't
don't
think
think that's in Akko's character.
it's not, but it's just like this for it. Like what you're saying, it's a horrible place to have an army, but if you want to hold it, you have to have an army here with mages, right? But it's just like, it's kind of like the Alamo or something. I don't know. It's just like something people just get stuck into defending that ends up being a death trap for everybody.
Yeah, I don't think that Arco's army should be there if he's planning on. Well, the only reason that army should be there is if he wants to attack Xibalba with it. That's the only thing that it can do. Because, obviously, if you're doing that, then you can, if he wants to, say, make peace with Erythia by feeding him some territory and be like, okay, take XYZ provinces and then I'm going to go 1v1 Xibalba, that might make sense. So, like, he
Yeah.
first puts up a little show where he makes Erythia take a lot of damage, show basically that it would be very hard to kill him. Ideally, if he can, kill that army on the throne. Better yet, get someone else to kill that army, so Erythia has someone else to be angry about as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, if Erythia is going to go fight Pangaea, then that solves everything very neatly.
Right.
And then that army in Joman is actually in the right place because that's where you want it to be fielded for your offensive push into Xibalba's northern territory.
That's a great analysis. That's a great analysis. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I mean that would make sense. Like maybe he's planning on actually killing Zabalba. Huh.
I mean, it's a tough call, or because as you pointed out, he's not in a position to defend against Erythia right now. But if he knows that the war with Xibalba is coming and he wants to proactively fight Xibalba, then it starts making sense.
Yeah.
But I think he should, like, if that's the plan and he thinks he doesn't have a nap, he should just go hit him, right? Like, if that's what he's planning on doing anyways, he should go, send out some 10 infantry raiding parties. And we know that Arco's player likes to do that already. And, like, it's just a very easy, good strategic move to go put pressure on Xibalba and make it harder for him to assemble that Doom stack.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be, I mean, it's going to be a really tricky war when it does happen, if it does happen.
I
On
think
one
it's fair
hand,
to say
Arco
when.
wants to hit Alt 8. I think that's like, for me, that's the huge milestone. It might be he's biding his time to get closer to that so that by the time the big fight happens, he has it. But then also, Zabalba's catching up. They're going to be getting pretty close. This is something Arco and I were looking at. They're going to be getting pretty close. So Arco was similarly worried that he's patrolling with this stuff and like this is not doesn't have good mage support. And even when this Zabalba stuff rolls out to go fight, we know Arco has big super combatants. It's
Oh,
possible.
he's got yeah, he has a super combatant there actually. Transformation
Right.
Luck Boy.
Yeah, we see the giant sorcerer here. So
That's scary.
it's possible that because these guys don't have a ridiculous amount of strength, it's possible that you could super combat in this. But there's things that Zabalba is actually, when you look at the research graphs, they're very close. So here's Zabalba. And this looks like very low. Like, oh, it's really bad.
is.
But this actually is reasonably close to getting your first 6. It's right up there if he focused on one of them. Now we know he's got like a blood 4 and maybe a few other things, but if he has alt 6, you're not going to be able to super combat into him with, non inanimate stuff. So like maybe a golem could do it or something, but not not a sorcerer, a giant sorcerer. So
Well, I mean, he also has Shattercasters, and that's alt 5. So he could easily kill a golem.
you could kill a
as long as he
golem
brings
too.
some Earth
Yeah.
for advancing cast.
Right. So Zabalba's getting very close themselves. So it's like on one hand, Arco's getting close to Will of Fates, which will redefine big army battles for them. On the other hand, Zabalba's getting close to Alt 6, presumably, which is going to redefine battles for them with Darkness and Drain Life and potentially Skeletal Legion. So,
Oh, there's way more in there. Like there's Petrify as well. That's up for that. Yeah, there's so much in like that region, like just Alt 6.
yeah,
Like you're looking at Petrify. Shatter is in Alt 5.
Ironbane's good for. I mean, it's not super needed,
Yeah,
but it's
Ironbane's bad.
yeah. Well, yeah.
Ironbane is almost completely useless.
Okay.
It's one of those spells that like used to be extremely good in Dom 4 and just got nerfed out of existence.
Well, it's only one gem, and it
It
basically
does
hits one side
something.
of the battle if you have Aussies. Like it doesn't. It affects Aussies literally none at all, and it affects the other side some.
It's going to reduce hoplite protection by like 3. Like
Yeah.
it's an extremely bad spell.
Yeah, but I mean 3 something. But yeah, the big hitters are this, right? What else are you looking at for the big hitters in Alteration 3? Or we got Drain Life here.
Oh, yeah, Drain Life, Frozen Heart, since he's got a ton of water, one
That's
Earth, one
right.
Mages.
That's a good point.
But then, yeah, the big ones are Petrify, which is no save, just lose. And the armor negating damage to go with it, with
Right.
either Shatter or Frozen
Does he
Heart.
get Bone Melter too? Does he have water nature?
I think that
I can't. Way up might get it. I can't remember.
they get it on the buck-up, the big guys.
Yeah.
But
it's they'd have to have
they need-
boosters like a Thistle Mace. Yeah.
it's also it's not like a crazy spell because it's magic resistance negating.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think this is going to be really spicy when this thing sets off, and it, like we're saying, depending on what research they have, what timing they hit on it, and then obviously how well they play. This is one of those conflicts that can go either way.
Yeah. The other thing we didn't talk about is if he's not going alt and he's just going deeper into blood, then Blood 7 also gives him a complete answer to anything that smells like a thug.
Yeah, though it's a little tricky it's one of the weird things about because there's not retinue for blood slaves. The slaves don't follow you, so it's a little hard to hit backline guys with leech now.
That's fair. Yeah, but you can also make range boosters and stuff to make that work. And you're going to want those range boosters late game anyways.
Yeah, there's the little, what is it, the blood pendant or something?
Blood pendant, yeah.
But yeah, I feel like there's just a lot less in deep blood right now for Zabalba. I feel like Alt 6 is the power play. It's also possible Zabalba's not doing that. And they can't, like, this research that they have is just barely enough for a 6, right? Like,
yeah,
if they chose something else, they definitely aren't going to have Alteration 6 anytime in the super near future. So
yeah, Zabalba is in the unfortunate situation of having a ton of great options, but they can only pick one. Unlike where Zabalba wants to be, where you have a ton of great options and you get to pick and choose what you're using to counter each of your opponent's armies. Yeah.
One of the things Arco and I were talking about too was that, and it's something you and I had talked about, which was that Zabalba has this kind of like, that's weird that they are going like full blood hammer build with magic, right? Because we're like, this is a toolkit build, but he's going full hammer. Like, what's up with that? And we got talking about it, and it seems like what happens is he got that hero early, and then one of the other things I've heard in the Diplo channels is that people have been trading him fire gems, and so he's been empowering mages. So I think what happened was he walked into this like with the luck he got from luck 3, and he got the heroes, and he was like, okay, the original plan was toolkit build, but we've got enough to make a hammer, and let's switch over to doing the hammer. So I think that's what happened. I think he just adapted mid game. Like, no, we're completely changing our whole strategy
to just Aussie spam.
Yeah. So, because it's normally not something you can rely on. Like, it's not a great plan. Like, you can't really plan on the Zabalba hammer because they can't summon Aussies in this quantity normally. Like, you have to empower a bunch of dudes. You have to have a ton of fire income. You have to get the hero. It's like not normally a thing.
Yeah, when I played LA Shib, I basically just got my Fire Random Wayab, which I managed to get 2 of.
Right.
And I got Empowered guys, and then that was my actual summoning core.
Yeah. All right. So I think we'll end this episode here. We managed to stretch it out to an hour. We were pretty much done at 50 minutes, but closing thought?
I wonder what TNG is going to do next. So
Ooh.
are they going to basically do a very slow grind to Pythium, or are they going to wrap up their war quickly and then go look for another target? Because we'd mentioned Pangea as a free agent and what they might do next, but TNG, while they are all in on this current war, might not necessarily be stuck with it for all too much longer. Because as we pointed out, Pythium is on the way out.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be a free agent, right? So that's going to depend a lot on what happens with Pangea and Gath. So Pangea and Gath get some decisions to make. And they're also, if Arco starts falling, there's not going to be anybody better set up to take advantage of that than TNG. They're going to get a huge part of the spoils if Arco starts to fall. Like, if Arco and Zabalba have a big clash and both of these armies die, then Arco's out of the game. And TNG can just move in and take their stuff.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good stuff there, including another throne.
Right. So that's in the cards. They can stab Arethea if Arethea starts dying. They can try to make a play for a Garthus cap. I think that's a very reasonable thing to do. They have a ton of really good options. They just need to successfully navigate finishing this war with Pythium without having another major loss like they did with the Foul Vapors trap.
Right. And the one thing that they still have going for them is their incredible gem income.
Right. And hopefully we see them do something with it.
I mean, they've been spending gems.
Right.
So, for whatever other criticisms or difficulties they might be facing, they have been spending their treasury.
Right. Yeah, but when I say do something with it, I mean turn it into... So certainly winning a war, using your gems to win a war is doing something. But what I meant when I was saying that was that I hope they have a plan to get control of some globals.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think they'd mentioned Earthblood Deepwell.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great for them. But yeah, anyway, we'll end it there and we'll see you next episode. And as always, if you made it to the end, thank you so much for sticking with us. And as always, again, Sai, thank you so much for casting this with me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for hosting.
All right. And we'll see you all next time.